Welcome back everyone. Another important video on request workbook solutions, the elevator, a one-shot session. In today's session, I'm going to discuss 6 very important extracts from your workbook, the Morning Star workbook, and also specimen question paper solutions. Extract 1, it's there on the screen, and the first question, where does Martin feel nervous? Martin feels nervous in the old elevator in the old building where he had shifted with his father. The key words and expressions, I have underlined them, so just have a look. And why does he feel nervous in the old elevator? Martin probably has claustrophobia, as his greatest fear is being trapped in the elevator. Thus, he feels nervous in this particular elevator. मार्टिन को लगता है कि वो इस एलिवेटर में फंस जाएगा और इसी बात से वो बहुत डरता है. This is his claustrophobia, fear of being trapped in a confined, enclosed space. The second question now, why was the elevator in his building unpleasant to use? The combination of poor lighting, dirty walls, a door that closed quickly with a loud clanging noise, and the elevator's small size contributed to Martin's unease inside the elevator in his building. He had always felt uncomfortable in elevators. Elevators use करना मार्टिन को एकदम ही पसंद नहीं था और इस पर्टिकुलर एलिवेटर में भी बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स थे जो मार्टिन का जो अनईज है, फीलिंग ऑफ अनईज एंड डिस्कम्फर्ट है, उसको बढ़ा दिया था. इसीलिए मार्टिन इस एलिवेटर से बहुत डरता था, अवॉइड करना चाहता था. और फैक्टर्स कौन कौन से हैं? नंबर 1, पुअर लाइटिंग. नंबर 2, डर्टी वॉल्स. नंबर 3, अ डोर दैट क्लोज्ड क्विकली. एंड नंबर 4, एलिवेटर स्मॉल साइज. Next question, what was the other option besides the elevator? Was it better than the elevator? Give reasons to justify your answer. The other option besides the elevator was the stairs. And was it a better option? The stairs were no better. Give reasons. There were no windows. The lights were not working, resulting in the passage being dark. जो पैसेज था, स्टेयरकेस का जो पैसेज था, वो बहुत उसमें अंधेरा था और मार्टिन को अंधेरे से भी डर लगता था. एलिवेटर में भी पुअर लाइटिंग था, इसीलिए मार्टिन को एलिवेटर पसंद नहीं था. और स्टेयरकेस जो था उसमें भी सेम केस है. द लाइट्स वर नॉट वर्किंग. द स्टेयर्स वर नॉट यूज्ड बाय अदर्स, हेंस द एरिया वाज सो सेक्लूडेड, सुनसान एरिया था, दैट मार्टिन्स फुटस्टेप्स echoed him on the cement. He had to climb many steps also, as his apartment was on the 17th floor. So these are the several reasons. Number 1, no windows. Number 2, lights were not working. Number 3, the stairs were not used by others. It was secluded. And number 4, he had to climb many steps as his apartment was on the 17th floor. In this way, dear students, mention all the points clearly so that you do not miss out any keyword or expression. The length of the answers, it is going to vary depending on the question. एक क्वेश्चन में अगर बहुत सारे सब पार्ट्स होंगे तो आंसर ऑटोमेटिकली थोड़ा लेंदी होगा. एंड डिपेंडिंग ऑल्सो ऑन द टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन, आंसर का लेंथ डिपेंड होगा. नेक्स्ट, now how did the size of the elevator affect the narrator later in the story? वर्कबुक में है narrator, मगर according to me, it should have been Martin, so I have changed it and I have written the answer accordingly. The elevator was so small, इतना छोटा था, that when the fat woman stepped into it, Martin had to squeeze himself into a corner. His repeated encounters with her inside the lift aggravated his fear and anxiety. He met with an accident to avoid this and found himself trapped with her there. So, the size of the elevator affected Martin in this way. जो फैट लेडी थी उसके साथ ये एलिवेटर शेयर करना मार्टिन के लिए जो है वो बहुत ही डरावना था. इसीलिए एक बार मार्टिन फैट लेडी को अवॉइड करने के लिए स्टेप्स यूज़ कर रहा था और द पैसेज वाज डार्क एंड ही फेल. ही मेट विद एन एक्सीडेंट. फिर बाद में उसी एलिवेटर में उसी औरत के साथ, फैट लेडी के साथ, मार्टिन ट्रैप्ड हो गया एलिवेटर में. सो दिस इज द केस over here. Now, explain how does this extract act as a foreshadow in the story. This extract foreshadows Martin's uncertain fate. Towards the end of the story, in fact at the end of the story, we do not know what happens to Martin because the ending is open-ended. So the uncertain fate of Martin is important. And this extract foreshadows Martin's uncertain fate when he is left alone in the elevator with the woman who menacingly laughs and pushes the stop button. The door closes and the elevator begins to move. This extract reveals Martin's fears that forebodes his plight. Plight का मतलब miserable condition. लास्ट में मार्टिन का क्या हाल होगा, इस औरत जो ये औरत थी वो मार्टिन के साथ क्या करेगी. So this is the sinister implication of this story, the suspense of this story. Now, extract number 2, who is he referred to in the extract? First, read the extract, it's there on the screen. And now the first answer, the word he refers to Martin's father who worked at home. And what did he ask Martin? He wanted to know why Martin was out of breath. He asked why Martin had not taken the elevator to reach his apartment. And why? Martin climbed up the stairs to return to his apartment. सीढ़ियों से वो चढ़ के वो अपार्टमेंट में रीच किया है, रिटर्न किया है. He felt scared and by the time he reached his home on the 17th floor, और अपार्टमेंट भी कहाँ था, 17th floor में. So ground floor से 17th floor तक वो सीढ़ियाँ चढ़ के वो ऊपर आया है. And by the time he reached the 17th floor, he was gasping for breath. He was breathless. Thus his father wanted to know the reason. तुम elevator क्यों नहीं use करते हो? Stairs से क्यों आए हो? State the 3 adjectives which he apparently used for Martin. Why? Martin's father called Martin number 1 skinny, number 2 weak and also a coward, number 3. And why? Martin's father was insensitive towards the boy. He was displeased with him and chided him in this way, mocked him, scolded him, humiliated him in this way because he conformed to gender stereotypes. Conforming to gender stereotypes का क्या मतलब है? According to Martin's father, boys must be brave, strong, they must not feel scared of anything. मगर मार्टिन जो है वो पूरा उल्टा था, उसको क्लॉस्ट्रोफोबिया था और पापा को ये एकदम ही पसंद नहीं था. What does Martin promise himself? Martin always took the elevator from that day. He promised himself he would get used to it, just like the bullying at schools. School में मार्टिन को बुली किया जाता था and Martin got used to it and Martin decided, he promised himself that he would get used to the elevator now. He would face his fears. He did not want to embarrass himself in front of his father. And does he succeed? He did not succeed. He did not get used to it. And name the other thing which he got used to. He was bullied at school. He got used to this also. What was his fear about the elevator? He was always afraid that the elevator would stop suddenly and he would be trapped inside it. This was his fear. वो फंस जाएगा एलिवेटर के अंदर and the elevator भी बंद हो जाएगा. Did that happen at the end of the story? Give reasons for your answer. At the end of the story, the elevator indeed stopped at 10 where the fat lady was waiting for him. She moved in quickly. He was too slow and unsteady on his crutches. वो गिर गया था, crutches के सहारे वो चल फिर रहा था बहुत मुश्किल से. तो जब वो औरत एंटर की फिर से, तो Martin was too slow and he could not get out of the elevator. The door closed. The lady menacingly laughed and pushed the stop button of the moving elevator, aggravating his fears and anxiety. तो सच में ही वो फंस गया था with the fat lady. So question 5. Explain briefly the characteristic traits of Martin based on the extract. Martin suffers from claustrophobia, has a somewhat low self-esteem and does not want to embarrass himself in front of his father. He is aloof from his father. इसका मतलब he is emotionally distanced, detached from his father. Emotionally Martin unstable है, weak है, vulnerable है, क्योंकि जो father है उसके साथ नहीं है, and he also suffers from claustrophobia, low self esteem है, स्कूल में भी दोस्त उतना नहीं है मार्टिन का. तो for all these reasons he is a little bit low, emotionally weak and vulnerable. However, despite his fears, he shows signs of self-introspection, continuously challenging his anxieties, trying to confront them. वो कोशिश कर रहा है अपने fears को हराने के लिए, अपने fears से overcome करने के लिए. ये दूसरा बात है, ये अलग ही बात है कि वो ये कर नहीं पाएगा लास्ट में. So this is his character sketch. And now, extract 3. What did Martin think about her all day and why? Martin thought whether the fat lady lived in his building or maybe she was visiting somebody. He had never seen her before and 7:30 was too early in the morning for visiting. वो क्या यहाँ पे रहती है या एक विजिटर है? मगर अगर विजिटर है तो 7:30 तो बहुत अर्ली है फॉर विजिटिंग. So he kept on thinking about all these things. He was preoccupied with the thoughts of this old lady. And why? Martin's first encounter with the fat lady inside the small elevator made him uncomfortable. Very important. He did not like it. She only watched him. Martin felt trapped inside the lift and was so scared that he thought about her all day. Why was Martin nervous when he got back from his building after school? Martin's claustrophobia intensified his unease and anxiety so much that he was preoccupied with the lady, fat lady. He feared meeting her again and being trapped with her in the elevator. इस बात को सोच के ही मार्टिन नर्वस फील कर रहा था. तो स्कूल जाते हुए इस लेडी से मुलाकात हुआ, स्कूल से वापस लौटते हुए, अपार्टमेंट तक जाते हुए अगर फिर से इस लेडी के साथ मुलाकात होती है तो फिर मार्टिन क्या करेगा? सो ही वॉज जस्ट अ यंग बॉय. ही वॉज फिल्ड विथ फियर्स. Why did Martin feel ashamed of himself? The strange lady was an old woman and he introspected. He thought, why should he be afraid of such a woman? There is nothing to be afraid of such a woman. He was ashamed of his irrational fears. Perhaps his fears were just baseless fears, figments of his overexcited, over-nervous imagination. And what does it reveal about him? Despite his fears, Martin shows signs of self-introspection, self-awareness, continuously challenging his anxieties and trying to confront them. वो डरता था मगर डर को पीछे छोड़ने के लिए वो steps भी ले रहा था. So he was self-aware. He was introspecting on how to move ahead, how to overcome all these shortcomings. Why did Martin hope that the elevator would not stop? What happened when it did not stop on the 3rd floor? He hoped that the elevator would not stop because he was so apprehensive that he would meet the fat woman once again over there. So he kept his fingers crossed. Elevator ना थमे और वो औरत उसे ना दिखे. He found her threatening and did not want to be inside the elevator with her. He dreaded her stare. And did the elevator stop? Yes, the elevator stopped on the 3rd floor. Martin watched the door slide open, revealing a green coat, a piggish face and blue eyes which were already staring at him. It was the fat woman again. जिसका डर था वही हुआ. He met the first woman again. Next, what according to you Martin found scarier, the elevator or the old lady? Give reasons for your answer. Now this is an interpretation based question. You are free to write your own viewpoints. Martin's fears of being trapped inside the elevator aggravated his anxiety so much that he was intimidated. वो डर चुका था, सहम गया था, by the presence of the old lady inside it. The woman's piercing stare bored into his face. The lady's menacing presence was like a nightmare. So it was the elevator which was the root cause of his fears, specifically his claustrophobia, but he found the woman scarier. तो एलिवेटर तो था ही, जो बैकग्राउंड जो सेटिंग था वो फियरफुल था. There was an atmosphere of unease and suspense in the background, but the intimidating appearance of this woman, her uncanny ability to meet him at the same time, wherever he was going, he was facing the woman. All these things made Martin suspicious of this woman. He found the woman really mysterious and also therefore scarier. Now dear students, this is my viewpoint. You may write your own viewpoint. Elevator, woman से वो ज़्यादा नहीं डरता था, elevator से ज़्यादा डरता था, मगर you will have to just justify your standpoint. You're free to do that. Extract 4 now. What was the mistake Martin thought he was probably making and why? Martin had to tell somebody about the fat woman whom he met repeatedly in the same day inside the elevator. ये कैसे हो सकता है? He found the woman strange and mysterious. He wanted to confide in somebody. कौन है ये? कहाँ से आई है? वो सिर्फ एक यंग बॉय था. उसे एक क्लियर परसेप्शन चाहिए था. किससे शेयर करेगा? मगर शेयर करना तो ज़रूरी था because he was filled with fear and anxiety. Why? He perhaps introspected that he might embarrass himself by raising his doubts. Therefore, he thought that it was going to be a mistake. किसी को वो जाके कहेगा, वो उसका मजाक बनाएगा. And at home, his father did not listen to him. At school also he was bullied. So he felt that he was making a mistake. लोग हंसेंगे. By raising his doubts about the woman, be perceived as a coward also for harboring irrational fears, thus venting his fears was the mistake. Why did Martin feel that he had to tell somebody about the woman? Now this I feel is a repetition. This could have been included in the first question itself. So the way the questions are framed in the workbook, some questions are really not needed, I feel. But still, I have tried to answer them. The manner in which the woman watched him and her eyes bored into Martin's face terrified him. The small size of the elevator triggered his unease and anxiety. He was so intimidated and suspicious that he felt restless to tell somebody about her. कैसे वो मैं जहाँ जा रहा हूँ ये औरत भी वहाँ पे आके खड़ी हो जा रही थी. कभी 3rd floor, कभी 18th floor, कभी 10th, कभी 9th. ये कैसे हो सकता है? कौन है ये? और हमेशा वो स्टेयर क्यों करती है? So this made Martin very restless. When did he decide? Whom did he decide to tell? He decided to tell his father. And why? Martin concluded that the fat woman knew that he lived on the 17th floor. तो खत्म. मेरा जो एड्रेस है वो इस औरत को पता चल चुका है. Thus he decided to tell his father as he was feeling unsafe. He wanted to verify from him if he ever had noticed a strange lady in the elevator. Father ने अगर देखा इस औरत को पहले तो ठीक है, वो information मिल जाएगा. मगर ये औरत कौन है? So he was restless to know about all these things. What was the one strange thing that Martin found strange about the lady? Why? That morning the lady got on at the 14th floor. But she got on the 3rd floor again and went up to the 18th floor. कभी 14th, कभी 3rd, कभी 18th. She also kept on staring at him. Her behavior was strange according to Martin. So this was strange. Why? The lady was on different floors at different times but was inside the elevator with Martin twice on the same day. Martin did not know her identity, whether she resided there or not, or whether she was a visitor. But he found her with him always, boring into his face, or you can use looking at him fixedly. Since I have used bored into his face, I will not repeat it. I will use looking at him fixedly. So avoid repetition also. This is another thing that you must be careful about. No repetition, please. Martin's father asked him what was he worried about now. अब क्यों डर रहे हो? तुम तो हमेशा ही डरते हो. What was he afraid about earlier? पहले किस चीज से डरता था Martin? And what did his father say about him then? Means earlier. Martin was afraid of being trapped in the elevator. So he tried the stairs one day after school. Just add he over here. By the time he reached home on the 17th floor, he was gasping for breath. So he was thus scared of the elevator. And what did his father tell him? He called him skinny, weak, coward. Then he was bad at sports also, according to the father. Now, give a character sketch of Martin's father based on this extract. Martin's father is emotionally distant from and insensitive to Martin. He seems too engrossed in his work or activities, here watching television in this case, to pay much attention to Martin's worries. Martin कुछ जानना चाहता है, मगर ये जो father है वो तो engrossed है, busy है television देखने के लिए. He is dismissive, impatient, and is disappointed as Martin does not conform to gender stereotype of being a boy. As a boy, he must not feel scared, he must be strong, he must be brave, he must not be a coward. But Martin is the exact opposite. Therefore, Martin's father is not happy with Martin's meekness and diffidence. Extract 5. Why did Martin start running down the stairs? How did he fall? In the morning, when the elevator door opened, the fat lady was waiting for Martin. Martin was unable to move, frightened, and backed away. She smiled almost menacingly, threateningly as the door slammed and Martin ran down the stairs to save himself. अपने आप को बचाने के लिए वो elevator use नहीं करना चाहता था उस दिन. And he rushed down the stairs. And why did he fall? The stairs were dark and he fell. What were Martin's father's feelings on his way to the hospital? How had he reacted earlier when Martin took the stairs to reach his house on the 17th floor? Martin's father was silent on the way to the hospital. Feelings kya tha? Disappointed, angry with him for being a coward and a fool. He did not make any attempt. He did not take any efforts to pacify Martin, to soothe Martin down, to calm down his excited nerves. Next, he was upset with Martin for being timid and coward when Martin took the stairs to reach his house on the 17th floor. He chided him for being physically weak, bad at sports, and mentally vulnerable. Vulnerable, mentally weak. And why would Martin not be able to use the stairs? How do you think Martin would have been affected by this condition, his injury? What do you think? What would be the impact? Martin had broken his leg and needed to walk on crutches, so he could not use the stairs. And Martin's inability to walk without crutches and his physical weakness would compel him to use the elevator only to reach his apartment on the 17th floor. Why would Martin not be able to use the stairs? How do you think Martin would have been affected by this condition? Martin had broken his leg, number 1, and needed to walk on crutches, number 2. He could not use the stairs. And how do you think Martin would have been affected by this condition, this injury? His father would be with him in the elevator. Injury की वजह से father elevator में उसके साथ ही रहेगा. On his way back home, there was no room for the fat lady in it, and if she did, father would see her. तो मार्टिन ने जो कहा fat lady के बारे में वो prove कर पाएगा. And when he got home, he could stay in the apartment for a few days. He would take rest, and he felt quite safe. His condition came as a relief to him. Why did Martin think that the fat lady had smiled and knew what was going to happen to him? Again, interpretation-based question. You are free to write your own answer over here. The fat woman's intimidating presence in the small old elevator created an atmosphere of unease and suspense. डरावना एक surrounding it environment create हो चुका था. Martin apprehended that she knew he would fall. Her smile was eerie and threatening. His anxiety and fear were triggered, and he had such irrational thoughts. This is my interpretation. Explain briefly what could have given rise to Martin's thoughts about the fat lady. Martin's claustrophobia, number 1. His father's insensitivity towards him, number 2. Bullying at school, number 3. Made Martin emotionally weak insecure and isolated. Very important. So the repeated encounters with the fat woman in the elevator filled him with such thoughts about the woman. He felt more insecure and dreaded her. Her presence was like a nightmare to him, resulting in baseless fears. Now, how did Martin remain alone in the elevator? What did his father tell him? Martin's father had promised to visit Mrs. Ullman, so he got out of the elevator on the 9th floor, leaving Martin alone in the elevator. And what did his father tell him? Grow up, Martin. Martin's father asked him if he was afraid to be in the elevator alone and told him, grow up, Martin. Why did Martin want to press the button 9 on the elevator? What do you think? What had happened instead? He was scared to be alone in the elevator. His father was on the 9th floor and Martin also wanted to go there. So he pressed button 9. And it did not do any good. The elevator stopped at 10. And there was this fat lady waiting for him. Very scary. Why could Martin not move out of the elevator? What happened thereafter? The woman quickly moved in and Martin was too slow to get past her in time to get out of the elevator. The door of the elevator closed and the elevator began to move. He was trapped in the elevator with her. जिसका डर था वही हुआ. She spoke to him for the first time. He knew everything about Martin. He knew his name. Instead of smiling this time, she laughed and pushed the stop button. क्या होगा Martin के साथ? Why do you think that the elevator laughed and then pushed the stop button? Your own reason, your own interpretation. So, these are vague answers, interpretation based. The lady perhaps had met Martin multiple times. The helplessness of Martin made her laugh. She pushed the stop button perhaps to make the elevator stop from moving so that she could achieve some sinister designs against the boy. कुछ भी हो सकता है. The ending is open-ended, so you cannot pinpoint. And you cannot give an objective explanation also. These are subjective answers, your own standpoint and interpretation. The story ends in a cliffhanger. What is a cliffhanger? Explain what according to you would have happened at the end. Give reason to justify your answer. A cliffhanger is a literary device that ends a section of a story, is a stunning event or a big dramatic question. In a cliffhanger, the protagonist is left in a precarious situation. एक डरावना situation में जो protagonist है वो फंस जाता है cliffhangers में. And here, क्या हुआ मार्टिन के साथ, protagonist के साथ? Trapped with the fat woman in the elevator. And the reader is drawn into the text and makes his own interpretation. So, cliffhanger ये है. Give reasons. Explain what according to you would have happened at the end, the open ending of the story. The story, The Elevator, has an open ending. Martin's fate is uncertain. Perhaps this encounter with the old fat woman exhausted him or made him unconscious. शायद वो unconscious होके गिर जाएगा. शायद woman जो है was indeed sinister. शायद his father came to rescue him after seeing that he did not return home. Probably nothing would happen. The lady had stopped the elevator for some other reason altogether. It was all Martin's dread and fancy. So, anything can happen because of the open-ending nature of this story. The readers are free to interpret the ending of this story. So, as long as you can justify your points, go for it. But don't be too far-fetched in your interpretations. So, end of the 6 questions and answers. And now, let me see very quickly the specimen question paper, section C. See, the extract is here on the screen. And the questions now: how did Martin feel when his father was with him in the elevator on the way back from the hospital? We have already discussed this, so I'll just do it verbally now. He felt quite safe. Father होंगे उसके साथ. And why? अगर father है तो वो fat lady इस small elevator के अंदर घुस नहीं पाएगी. अगर घुस भी गई तो father को वो दिख जाएगी. And he will not be alone. और एक बारी वो घर पहुंच जाए तो he will be safe for quite some time now. When the elevator could carry 3 people at a time, why did Martin think that there was no room for the elevator, for the lady in the elevator? वो डरा हुआ था. He had claustrophobia. So for any reason, he wanted this woman out of the elevator. What does it suggest about him? His timid nature, his meekness, his fears, his anxiety, his claustrophobia. What made Martin feel quite safe from the lady? Presence of father in the elevator with him, and the fact that he was going home and he would take rest for some days now. Do you think Martin really remains safe from the lady? No. Give reason to support your answer. At the end of the story, we find him again trapped with the lady, and this time the lady laughed, spoke to him, called him, used his name, and also stopped the stop button, pressed the stop button. Explain briefly Martin's irrational fears. Was he able to overcome his fears? No, he was not able to overcome his fears. He fell down also, he hurt himself also. But still he was scared. Irrational fears क्या होगा? कौन है ये औरत? वो क्यों यहाँ वहाँ मेरे पीछे आ रही है? Why is she staring at me? Why she is not coming from the same floor every day? एक बारी यहाँ, एक बारी वहाँ. So what is her purpose? So this is the end of today's session. Take care.